Ever feel like you're stuck living in someone else's shadow?
Yeah, I think we've all felt that way at some point in our lives, haven't we?
Today, we're diving into the life of someone who lived that feeling every day.
Oh, this should be good.
Lettice Knollys,
That's okay.
cousin to Queen Elizabeth I.
Wow.
And her story is full of ambition, forbidden romance,
Ooh, juicy.
and an unwavering spirit.
Sounds like quite the character.
All that and more, according to the Noble Blood podcast.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack.
I think so. Where do we even begin with a story like this?
Well, I think what makes Lettice's story so captivating is how it shows the struggle between love and power. It's something that still fascinates us, even centuries later.
Yeah, it's almost like a real-life Shakespearean drama, isn't it?
Exactly.
To really understand Lettice, we need to start with Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen.
Right.
She chose power over marriage.
Well, considering her family history, who can blame her?
Yeah, her father, Henry VIII.
6 wives, executions, annulments.
Talk about a dysfunctional family.
Yeah. I can't imagine that was easy for Elizabeth.
I mean, for her, marriage probably seemed more like a threat than anything else.
Absolutely.
A way for men to control her and take away her power.
Right. And then there's Robert Dudley.
Elizabeth's close friend, advisor, and rumored love interest.
Oh, now we're getting to the good stuff.
Their relationship was so close.
But then there's the mystery surrounding Dudley's first wife, Amy Robsart.
Fell down the stairs, they said.
But of course, rumors of foul play started swirling around Dudley.
Making a marriage between him and Elizabeth pretty much impossible.
Too risky, even if they both wanted it.
And that's where Lettice Knollys comes in.
Ah, our main character.
Elizabeth's cousin.
And a woman who, according to the podcast, looked a lot like the Queen.
Almost like a mirror image.
That resemblance, along with her family ties, put Lettice right in the center of everything.
At the time, she was married to Walter Devereux, the Earl of Essex.
But even then, people were already whispering about her and Robert Dudley.
Imagine the tension at court.
Everyone probably watching their every move, gossiping about what might be going on.
Oh, I bet it was like a soap opera back then.
Definitely.
And then, 2 years after her husband dies, Lettice secretly marries Robert Dudley.
Talk about bold.
It was a direct challenge to Elizabeth's power.
Not just as a queen, but as a woman, too.
She saw it as a personal betrayal. Lettice marrying the man she herself couldn't.
And Elizabeth's reaction, well, let's just say she wasn't happy.
According to the podcast, she even slapped Lettice
Wow, that's intense.
and declared that there could only be one queen in England.
A clear message, to say the least.
But what's really interesting is Lettice's response.
What did she do?
She didn't back down.
She didn't?
Nope.
That's surprising.
Instead of hiding away, she and Dudley made very public appearances together.
Dudley rubbing it in, huh?
Kind of. It was like she was saying, I chose love, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Wow, what a statement.
I mean, think about it. Risking everything, the Queen's favor, social standing, maybe even her safety, all for love.
Makes you wonder what you'd be willing to risk for the people you care about.
It really does.
And it speaks volumes about Lettice's character.
Absolutely. She was determined to live her life on her own terms, even if it meant facing the consequences.
Sounds like she was a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, she definitely was. But their happiness was short-lived.
Oh no, what happened?
We'll have to dive into that after the break.
Oh, okay, I can't wait to hear more.
Lettice and Robert, their happiness was cut short.
Oh yeah, the podcast mentioned they lost their son.
He was only 3 years old when he died.
Aw, that's heartbreaking.
Especially back then, childhood mortality rates were so high,
Yeah, a reminder of how fragile life was.
even for those with privilege and status.
Right. It could all change in an instant.
And then, just a few years later,
Dudley died too.
yes,
Oh, Lettice had to deal with so much loss.
and on top of the grief, she was left with all of Dudley's debts.
Wow, talk about adding insult to injury.
Exactly, it's like one blow after another.
But she didn't give up, did she?
No, not at all.
This is where her resilience really shines through.
Absolutely, imagine facing all that.
The financial strain, the whispers at court, the loss of her husband and child.
It's amazing that she didn't break under the pressure.
Most people would have crumbled.
But Lettice, she took control of her life.
What did she do?
She fought to protect her inheritance.
Good for her.
And she even found love again.
Really?
Yeah, she married Sir Christopher Blount,
Who was he?
a soldier 12 years younger than her.
Huh. Interesting choice.
It seems like she was looking for stability, companionship.
Maybe even a little freedom from the court.
That's a good point. It must have been exhausting being constantly scrutinized.
Always having to worry about what people were saying.
Exactly. But even with a new husband, drama wasn't far behind.
Oh no, what happened now?
Lettice's son from her first marriage, Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex.
Wait, I remember that name.
He actually became quite close to Queen Elizabeth.
You're kidding, just like his stepfather.
Almost like history was repeating itself.
Wow, that's incredible.
But then, tragedy struck again.
What, don't tell me Robert rebelled against Elizabeth too.
He did.
Oh no.
And it led to his execution.
Along with Christopher Blount.
Yes, Lettice lost another husband.
That's awful. Can you imagine the pain she must have felt?
Her own son, a favorite of the Queen, executed for treason.
And her husband caught up in it all.
It's a stark reminder of how dangerous ambition can be.
And how quickly fortunes can change.
Lettice lost everything, her lands, her wealth.
The stigma of treason, ostracized by her own family.
It's truly remarkable that she managed to endure all of that.
She was incredibly resilient, but what happened after that?
Well, that's when fate took another turn. Queen Elizabeth died.
And King James came to the throne.
Yes, and this is where things get interesting.
Did James have it out for Lettice?
Not at all. He showed her a surprising amount of mercy.
Really?
He restored her lands, cleared Dudley's debts, allowed her to live out her days in peace.
Wow, a complete reversal of fortune.
Almost like a final act of redemption for Lettice.
After all she'd been through, she deserved a little peace.
And she lived to be 91.
91. That's incredible for that time period.
She outlived almost everyone from that tumultuous era.
Wow, a true survivor.
And in the end, she was buried beside Robert Dudley.
That's so romantic. Their love endured even after death.
But Lettice's story wasn't just about romance and tragedy.
Right, there was also a lot of intrigue and mystery.
The rumors of foul play that followed her and Dudley.
The deaths of Amy Robsart and even Lettice's first husband.
People were convinced that Dudley was behind it all, a ruthless schemer.
There was even a book written about it.
Leicester's Commonwealth.
Yeah.
But it was basically propaganda.
Written by Dudley's enemies to discredit him.
So who knows what really happened?
It's hard to separate fact from fiction with historical accounts like that.
Especially when they're written with a specific agenda in mind. There were even rumors that Lettice had poisoned Dudley.
Seriously.
Yeah, but those accusations came much later.
Probably just more gossip and speculation.
It's like a historical game of telephone. The truth gets distorted with every retelling.
Exactly, which is why we have to be careful when interpreting historical narratives.
Consider the sources, the biases, the possibility of multiple perspectives.
It's all part of the challenge and the fun of exploring history.
I wish we could just hop in a time machine and see what really happened.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
But I guess that's part of what keeps us coming back for more.
The unanswered questions, the mysteries.
In Lettice's case, those mysteries are definitely part of her allure.
But as we've seen, her story is so much more than just scandal and intrigue.
She was a complex woman who defied expectations, endured hardship, and ultimately made her own mark on history.
And her story continues to fascinate us centuries later.
Speaking of which, her legacy raises some interesting questions about how history remembers women like her.
Women who dared to challenge the status quo.
Lettice's story is really a reminder that history is more than just dates and names.
It's about real people.
With real lives.
And those lives are often way more complicated than we think.
It seems like Lettice is often forgotten in the bigger story of Elizabeth and Dudley.
Yeah, she's kind of pushed to the side.
Just a footnote.
But her influence, even if it was subtle, was still important.
Like her son Robert.
He became a favorite of Queen Elizabeth, right?
Exactly.
I wonder if that had anything to do with Lettice's relationship with the Queen.
Even though it was strained, it was still a connection.
It makes you think, did Elizabeth see a bit of Robert Dudley in young Robert?
Or was it just Robert's charm that won the Queen over?
We'll never know for sure.
But it's interesting to consider.
Definitely, it shows how personal relationships can have these unexpected ripple effects.
Especially in a place like the royal court.
Where everything is connected.
And what about Lettice's reputation?
Despite all the scandal and rumors,
she managed to get her status and wealth back after Elizabeth died.
She found a way back to a position of power.
She wasn't just a pawn in the game.
She knew how to play it, too.
She was smart, resilient, and she knew how to adapt.
A true survivor.
Her story is kind of inspiring.
It shows that even in a world dominated by men,
women could still find ways to take control of their own destinies.
So for all of you listening out there,
I think Lettice's story should make us question what we think we know about history.
To look for the hidden stories.
Especially the stories of women.
Who have often been overlooked or misunderstood.
It's a reminder that there's always more to the story.
And that history is full of different perspectives.
Lettice Knollys.
A woman who dared to love, to defy, and to endure.
Her story is definitely one worth remembering.
It makes you think about the choices we make.
And the impact those choices have.
It's not just on ourselves,
but on the world around us.
if you're interested in learning more about Lettice,
Check out the full Noble Blood episode.
it's a great deep dive into her life and times.
And while you're at it,
Hit that subscribe button.
so you don't miss out on any of our future deep dives.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.